My husband asked me to join him for an important business dinner with a potential partner from Japan. I smiled, agreed, and slipped easily into the role I'd learned to play over the years, the quiet, polished wife who looked good and didn't ask questions. What he had no idea about was that I understood Japanese fluently. Every word. And once I heard what he said about me to that client, nothing in my life stayed the same. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me back up and start where it really began. My name is Emily, and for 12 years I honestly believed I had a solid marriage. It wasn't perfect by any stretch, but I thought it worked well enough. My husband, Michael, was a senior manager at a tech company in the Bay Area. I had a job too, working as a marketing coordinator at a smaller firm. It wasn't flashy or impressive, but I liked what I did and it paid the bills. We lived in a comfortable townhouse in Mountain View, took one vacation a year. And from the outside looking in, we probably seemed like one of those couples who had everything figured out. Somewhere along the way, though, things quietly changed. I still can't say exactly when it started. Maybe it was after Michael got his last promotion about 3 years ago. Or maybe it happened so slowly that I didn't notice until I was already living inside a marriage that felt unfamiliar. Michael became busier, or at least that's what he kept telling me. His job was more demanding. He stayed late at the office, flew out for conferences, and when he was home, his attention was always elsewhere. If he wasn't glued to his phone, he was too exhausted to have a real conversation. Before long, our talks turned into nothing more than logistics. Did you grab my dry cleaning? Remember, we're having dinner with the Millers on Saturday. Can you deal with the lawn service? I don't have time for that. I convinced myself this was just how long marriages worked. After 10 years, the excitement fades, routines take over, and you just push through. I ignored the loneliness that settled in during the evenings when Michael shut himself away in his home office. I'd sit on the couch, watching shows I didn't even care about just to fill the silence. Then, about 18 months ago, something unexpected happened. Something that quietly changed the direction of my life. One night, when I couldn't sleep, I was scrolling through my phone and came across an ad for a free trial of a language app. It was for Japanese. I'd studied it briefly in college back when I was younger and still dreaming about things that didn't seem realistic anymore. I remembered loving it, the structure, the beauty of the language, the way it made me think differently about the world. But life happened. I met Michael, got married, settled into work, and those old interests got shoved into a mental drawer labeled childish or impractical. That night, while Michael slept next to me, snoring softly, I downloaded the app out of pure curiosity. I just wanted to see if anything came back. To my surprise, a lot of it did. The hiragana returned quickly, then the katakana. Before I knew it, I was completely absorbed. Within a few weeks, I was hooked. Most evenings, while Michael stayed late at work or sat watching financial news, I'd sit at the kitchen table with earbuds in, working through lessons. I found a podcast for Japanese learners. I started watching Japanese dramas, first with subtitles, then without them. I never mentioned any of this to Michael. Not because I was deliberately hiding it, but because I'd learned from experience what happened when I shared things he didn't value. 3 years earlier, I'd casually mentioned wanting to take a photography class. He laughed, not cruelly but in a way that still stung. He told me everyone takes pictures with their phone now, and that I didn't need a class. Then he asked when I'd even have time for something like that. After that moment, I stopped bringing up my interests. It was easier to keep them to myself than to explain or defend them. So Japanese became my secret. My little world. And the truth was I was good at it. Really good. I practiced every single day, sometimes for 2 or 3 hours at a time. I did video lessons with tutors on Italki, joined online study groups, and eventually started reading simple Japanese novels. By the time a year had gone by, I could understand conversational Japanese with real confidence. Not flawlessly, but well enough to follow movies, understand podcasts, and carry on meaningful conversations. Learning the language felt like reclaiming a part of myself I'd buried years ago. Every new word, every grammar rule I mastered reminded me that I was still capable of growing. Still someone beyond just being Michael's wife. Then, one evening in late September, Michael came home earlier than usual. He looked energized, almost excited, which I hadn't seen in a long time. He loosened his tie as he walked into the kitchen where I was cooking and said, "Emily, I've got great news." He told me his company was close to finalizing a major partnership with a Japanese tech firm. The CEO was flying in the following week, and Michael was taking him to dinner at Hashiri. Then he added that I needed to come along. When I looked up at him confused, he explained that the client had specifically asked if he was married. He said it was part of Japanese business culture, family stability, good image, all that. He grabbed a beer from the fridge and casually told me I just needed to look nice, smile, and be charming. The usual. Something about the way he said that rubbed me the wrong way, but I didn't say anything. He told me the date, the time, and even what to wear, the navy dress with sleeves. Conservative but elegant. Then he finally looked straight at me and said that the client didn't speak much English. He explained that he'd be handling most of the conversation in Japanese and warned me I'd probably be bored, but to just smile through it. My heart skipped. I asked him when he learned Japanese. He sounded proud as he told me he'd picked it up over the years working with the Tokyo office and that it was one of the reasons he was being considered for a VP role. Not many executives could negotiate in Japanese, he said. He never once asked if I spoke it. Never even considered the possibility. In his mind, I was just there to play my part. I turned back to the cutting board, kept my hands steady, and told him I'd be there. After he left the room, I stood alone in the kitchen, my thoughts racing. An unexpected opportunity had just dropped into my lap. A chance to hear how Michael really spoke when he thought I couldn't understand. How he described our life. How he talked about me. Part of me felt guilty for even wanting to know. But the larger part, the part that had been feeling invisible for a long time, needed to hear the truth. That week felt like it moved in slow motion as I waited for Thursday to arrive. In the days leading up to the dinner, I used every spare minute to brush up on my business Japanese. I reviewed polite forms, practiced formal phrasing, and made sure I could follow the kind of professional conversation Michael would be having. I wasn't even sure what I expected to hear. Maybe nothing at all. Maybe I was just letting my imagination run wild, seeing cracks where there weren't any. Then Thursday finally came. I put on the navy dress Michael had picked out, added low heels and understated jewelry, and took a long look at myself in the mirror. What stared back at me was exactly what he wanted. Polished, harmless, and presentable. A wife who wouldn't say the wrong thing or embarrass him in front of people who mattered. The restaurant was in San Francisco, sleek and expensive, the kind of place you couldn't get into without planning months ahead. Michael had booked it through the company account. We arrived 15 minutes early. As we stood outside, he checked his reflection using his phone camera and adjusted his tie, even though it was already perfectly straight. As we walked in, he reminded me, just be pleasant. Don't jump into the business conversation. If Mr. Nakamura speaks to you in English, keep your answers short. We need him focused on the partnership, not distracted by small talk. I nodded, forcing myself to swallow the sharp bitterness rising in my throat. Mr. Nakamura was already seated when we reached the table. He stood to greet us, a man in his mid-50s, wearing silver-rimmed glasses and a suit that fit like it was made just for him. Michael bowed slightly and I followed his lead. They exchanged polite greetings in Japanese, formal and respectful. I smiled and took my seat, letting Michael pull out the chair for me, making sure I looked appropriately clueless. At first, the conversation stayed in English. Mr. Nakamura complimented the restaurant, mentioned his hotel, and asked if this was our first time hosting international partners. His English was actually quite good, far better than Michael had suggested, just spoken with a noticeable accent. Once the menus arrived, though, the shift happened naturally, and they moved fully into Japanese. I had to admit Michael sounded impressive. He spoke smoothly and confidently, clearly comfortable in the language. They talked about projections, expansion plans, and technical details. I didn't catch every word, but I understood enough. I stayed quiet, sipping my water, smiling now and then when they glanced my way, playing my assigned part. Then Mr. Nakamura turned slightly toward me and asked in Japanese what I did for work. Before I could even hesitate or pretend not to understand, Michael answered for me. "Oh, Emily works in marketing," he said casually in Japanese. "But it's a small company. Nothing serious. More like a hobby to keep her busy. She mostly focuses on taking care of our home." I kept my expression calm, but inside something twisted painfully. A hobby? I'd spent 15 years building a career in marketing, running successful campaigns, maintaining client relationships, doing real work. And he reduced all of it to something I did to pass the time. Mr. Nakamura nodded politely and didn't ask anything further. Course after course arrived, each dish carefully arranged and almost too pretty to eat. I took small bites, stayed quiet and really listened. The more Michael talked, the more I noticed the difference. In Japanese he sounded bolder, more self-important. He exaggerated his role in projects, took credit for group efforts, and positioned himself as far more essential to the company than he truly was. It wasn't outrageous, but it was obvious. This version of Michael was inflated, polished for display. Eventually, the conversation drifted toward work-life balance. Mr. Nakamura mentioned how important family support was in demanding careers. Michael laughed, and the sound made my stomach tighten. To be honest, Michael said in Japanese, his tone dismissive and light, my wife doesn't really understand the business world. She's happy with a simple life. I handle the important things, the finances, career planning, big decisions. She's mostly here for appearances. Keeps the house running, looks good at events like this. It works out well for me. I don't have to deal with a wife who needs too much attention or has ambitions that get in the way. I clenched my water glass so tightly I thought it might crack. Mr. Nakamura made a vague, non-committal sound. I watched his face carefully and caught a flicker of discomfort, but he didn't challenge Michael. Instead, he gently shifted the conversation, asking about Michael's long-term goals. The VP position is basically locked in, Michael said confidently in Japanese. After that, I'm aiming for the C-suite within 5 years. I've been strategic, building the right relationships. My wife doesn't know yet, but I've already started moving some assets around. Offshore accounts. It's just smart planning. If my career demands relocation or major changes, I need flexibility. I can't be tied down by joint accounts or needing her approval on everything. My blood ran cold. Offshore accounts. Assets moved without my knowledge. I sat there smiling politely while my husband calmly described financial decisions that sounded like preparation for a future where I either didn't exist or had no access to what was rightfully ours. And then he went even further. When Mr. Nakamura asked about stress management, Michael laughed again, this time uglier than before. I have my outlets, he said. There's someone at work, Lauren from finance. We've been seeing each other for about 6 months. My wife has no idea. Honestly, it's been good for me. Lauren understands my ambitions. She's going places too. We talk strategy, make plans. It's refreshing after coming home to someone who can't discuss anything more complicated than what's for dinner. I didn't move. My face felt frozen in place while inside I shattered completely. But years of learning how to be quiet, agreeable, and small kept me sitting there. The smile stayed. My hands didn't shake. No one could see the damage happening beneath the surface. An affair. Secret accounts. My career dismissed as a pastime. Me reduced to a decorative accessory who kept house and looked nice when required. 12 years of marriage, and this was how he spoke about me when he thought I couldn't understand. By now, Mr. Nakamura was clearly uncomfortable. I saw it in the way he shifted in his chair and steered the conversation back towards safe, neutral business topics. Mr. Nakamura was far too polite to challenge Michael directly, but his tone shifted. His answers grew shorter, more reserved, and noticeably formal. Not long after, the dinner wrapped up. We said our goodbyes in the lobby of the restaurant. Mr. Nakamura bowed to me and said carefully in English, "It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Emily. I wish you well." There was something in his eyes when he said it, something gentle, almost sad, that made me wonder if he understood far more than he'd let on. Maybe Michael's words had unsettled him too. The drive home passed in silence. Michael, on the other hand, seemed perfectly content, humming softly along with the radio. "That went really well," he said. "I think we're going to close the deal." Nakamura was clearly impressed. "That's wonderful," I replied, though my voice sounded empty even to me. When we got home, Michael kissed my cheek without really looking at me, and mentioned he had emails to catch up on before disappearing into his office. I went upstairs, shut the bedroom door, and stood there in the quiet, letting the weight of the evening settle over me. Then I did something I never imagined I would do. I picked up my phone and called Rachel. Rachel had been my college roommate and my closest friend back then. Before adulthood, distance, and Michael's subtle discouragement slowly pushed my friendships out of my life. She'd gone on to become a family law attorney, and had survived her own divorce 5 years earlier. We'd recently reconnected on social media, exchanging polite messages, but I hadn't shared anything real about my life. She answered on the second ring. "Emily," she said, surprised. It was nearly 11 at night. "Rachel," I said, and my voice cracked as I finished the sentence. "I need a lawyer." We talked for 2 hours. I told her everything: the dinner, the Japanese conversation, the offshore accounts, the affair, the years of being talked over, minimized, and dismissed. She listened without interrupting, her legal instincts clearly kicking into gear as I spoke. When I finally finished, she said, "First, I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me?" I took a breath. "Second," she continued, "what he's doing with those offshore accounts could be illegal. At the very least, it's unethical. If he's hiding marital assets, especially in anticipation of a divorce, that's financial fraud. And we can work with that." "I don't have proof," I said. "It was just a conversation." "Did you record the dinner?" she asked. I felt foolish. No, I wasn't thinking. I was just trying to understand what I was hearing. "That's okay," she said gently. "Here's what we do next. Don't confront him yet. I know you want to, but we need to be smart. Starting tomorrow, you gather everything: bank statements, tax returns, financial records. Take photos. Forward emails to yourself. If he's moving money, there will be a trail. We'll find it." "Rachel, I'm scared," I admitted. "I know," she said. "But you're also smart and capable. You taught yourself an entire language right under his nose. You can handle this. And you're not doing it alone." After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed and finally let myself feel everything I'd been holding back all evening. The rage, the betrayal, the grief, the fear. But beneath all of it, something else was forming: cold, steady determination. I wasn't going to be a decorative wife anymore. I wasn't going to be dismissed, cheated on, or treated like I didn't matter. I was taking my life back, even if it meant tearing everything down to do it. The next morning, I called in sick to work. Michael barely noticed. He muttered something that sounded like acknowledgement and left for the office. The moment his car pulled out of the driveway, I started searching. Michael's home office was neat and methodical, just like him. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. Bank statements going back 3 years. Tax returns. Investment account records. I photographed everything, uploaded it to a private cloud drive Rachel had set up for me, and kept going. That's when I saw it. 2 accounts I'd never known existed. Both showed regular transfers. Nearly $50,000 moved over the last 8 months to a bank in the Cayman Islands. Our joint savings had been slowly drained without my knowledge. I felt nauseous, but I didn't stop. Rachel had told me to be thorough, so I found emails too, printed out and filed away. Messages about investment properties I didn't know we owned. Or rather, properties he owned. Everything was in his name alone. And then I found the emails to Lauren. He'd been careless, printing some of them to reference dates or figures. But the content left no room for doubt. They were intimate, explicit, and full of plans for a shared future. One where I clearly didn't exist. One message read, "Once I've handled the Emily situation, we won't have to hide anymore." The Emily situation. That was me. Reduced to a problem that needed managing. For 6 weeks, I quietly collected evidence while living under the same roof as a man I now saw clearly for the first time. Every smile felt fake. Every casual touch made my skin crawl. But I played my role. I cooked dinner, asked about his day, and acted like nothing had changed. Rachel built the case carefully. I met with her twice a week, bringing new documents and talking through strategy. We planned to file for divorce and at the same time, report Michael's financial misconduct to his company's ethics board. The offshore accounts violated company policy. Rachel discovered that he could lose not just his marriage but his career. "Are you sure you want to go this far?" she asked me during one meeting. "The company part will be nuclear. He'll lose everything." "He was already planning to leave me with nothing," I said. "He said it himself. He was preparing. I'm just moving first." We chose a Friday. Rachel filed the divorce paperwork Thursday afternoon. Friday morning, I got dressed like I was heading to work. But instead of driving to my office, I went to hers. Michael's HR department received our evidence package at 9 a.m. The divorce papers were served to him at his office at 9:30. I sat in Rachel's conference room, drinking coffee I couldn't taste, watching the clock. My phone stayed off. I didn't want to see his calls or messages when reality hit him. At 11, Rachel got confirmation. Papers served. Evidence received. Michael had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Terrified," I said honestly. "But right." I stayed at Rachel's place that night. She had a guest room and had already told me I could stay as long as I needed. She helped me draft emails to my own employer, explaining that I'd be taking FMLA leave for personal reasons. And for the first time in a long while, I slept without pretending everything was fine. That night, Rachel and I ordered takeout, opened a bottle of wine, and for the first time in years, I felt like I could actually breathe. The tension I'd been carrying for so long finally loosened its grip, just a little. Michael tried calling me 47 times that first day. He left voicemail after voicemail, confused at first, then angry, then desperate. I didn't listen to a single one. Rachel did. She documented every message carefully and added them to the growing case file. On Saturday, Rachel came with me back to the house along with a police officer, just in case. I was there to collect my things. Michael was home and he looked awful. His hair was unkempt, his clothes wrinkled, dark circles under bloodshot eyes. When he saw me, he started in immediately. "Emily, please." I raised my hand. "Don't. Just let me explain." "Explain what?" I said calmly. "That you've been cheating on me? That you've been hiding money? That you told a stranger I was too simple to understand your world?" I looked straight at him. "I understood everything you said at that dinner, Michael. Every word." His face drained of color. You don't speak Japanese." "I've been fluent for over a year," I said. "Funny how you never asked. Never wondered what I did while you were busy with work or with Lauren." He collapsed onto the couch. "The company put me on leave. They're investigating. Emily, I could lose my job." "That's not my problem anymore," I replied. I turned toward the stairs, heading for the bedroom to pack. "Wait," he said, his voice breaking. "We can fix this. Couples therapy. I'll end things with Lauren. We can work through it." I stopped and looked at him, really looked at him. This was the man I'd spent 12 years with. The man I loved. The man I thought loved me. "You don't want to fix us," I said quietly. "You want to fix your career. Your reputation. Your finances. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you got caught." "That's not true," he insisted. "At that dinner," I said, "you told Mr. Nakamura I was just for appearances, that I was unambitious, that I was basically a live-in housekeeper who looked nice at events. Do you even remember saying that?" He didn't answer. He didn't have to. "I'm done shrinking myself for you," I said. "I'm done being the convenient wife who doesn't ask for much. File whatever motions you want. Fight the divorce if you feel like it. But you're not going to win, and you're not getting away with hiding our assets." I packed for 2 hours. He didn't try to stop me again. He just sat there staring into nothing. The divorce took 8 months. California required a 6-month waiting period, and the rest of the time was spent negotiating the settlement. Michael's company investigation uncovered enough evidence of ethical violations to fire him. He eventually found another job, but it came with a lower title and a much smaller paycheck. The offshore accounts had to be disclosed. The properties I never knew about were added to the marital assets. In the end, I walked away with half of everything he tried to hide, along with 3 years of spousal support while I rebuilt my career. But the best thing, the part one never saw coming, happened about 2 months into the divorce. Mr. Nakamura reached out to me on LinkedIn. His message was short but kind. He said he'd heard about the divorce and wondered if I might be interested in a position with his company. They were opening a U.S. office and needed someone who understood both American marketing and Japanese business culture. My skill set, he said, would be invaluable. When I met with him and his team, I spoke Japanese from the very first moment. His face lit up, not just with respect but with something close to amusement. Like he finally understood what had really happened at that dinner. "I knew," he said in Japanese at the end of the interview. "The way you held yourself when Michael spoke about you. I saw it in your eyes just for a moment. I am glad you found your strength. They offered me the job. Senior Marketing Director. The salary was 3 times what I'd been making. I accepted. I'm 63 now. All of this happened more than 20 years ago, but I remember every detail. The divorce, painful as it was, gave me my life back. I ran that marketing department for 15 years before retiring. I traveled to Japan more than a dozen times, built real friendships, and became someone who existed beyond being somebody's wife. I never remarried. I dated now and then. I had one serious relationship that lasted 5 years before we parted on good terms. But I never again made my world smaller to fit someone else's expectations. Michael emailed me once about 3 years after the divorce was finalized. He'd remarried. He apologized, said he hoped I was doing well. I never replied. Some chapters don't need an epilogue. I still study Japanese, though now it's purely for joy. I read novels, watch films, and sometimes tutor young professionals who want to learn. What started as a secret escape became the thing that saved me. It showed me I was capable of so much more than I'd allowed myself to believe. That dinner at Hashiri was the worst and best night of my life. Worst because it shattered the illusion I'd been living in. Best because it finally pushed me to act. So if you're listening to this and you're in a marriage where you feel invisible, where your interests are dismissed, where you're made to feel small, pay attention to that feeling. Learn the language. Gather the evidence. Find your Rachel. And when you're ready, take your life back. It won't be easy. It will hurt. There will be nights when you question everything. But on the other side of that pain is a life where you get to be fully yourself. A life where your voice matters. Where you're not just decorative but essential. And that life is worth fighting for.